There appears to be some confusion regarding the National Electrical Code, or NEC, requirements for arc fault circuit interrupter, or AFCI, breakers after a panel change. The specific NEC requirements for AFCI protection have evolved over time. It's important to consult the NEC edition that is currently adopted in your jurisdiction. Typically, the requirement to install AFCI protection in bedroom circuits is triggered by alterations, replacements, or extensions of existing circuits. However, the exact scope of these requirements can vary depending on the specific wording of the code and local amendments. The NEC does not explicitly state that simply changing an electrical panel automatically mandates the installation of AFCI breakers on all existing bedroom circuits. It depends on the extent of the work being performed and the interpretation of the local electrical inspector. If you are only replacing the panel and not making any changes to the existing branch circuits, AFCI protection might not be required. However, if you are extending or modifying the existing bedroom circuits during the panel change, AFCI protection would likely be required for those modified circuits. The presence of other loads on the bedroom circuits, such as paddle fans and closet lights, does not change the requirement for AFCI protection if it is otherwise triggered by the code. The fact that the AFCI breakers are tripping when the paddle fan or closet light is activated suggests that there might be a problem with the wiring in those circuits or with the devices themselves. This could be due to several reasons. Firstly, loose connections. Loose connections can cause arcing, which can trip AFCI breakers. Check all connections in the circuit, including those at the panel, at the outlets, at the fan, and at the closet light. Secondly, damaged wiring. Damaged or frayed wiring can also cause arcing. Inspect the wiring for any signs of damage. Thirdly, faulty devices. A faulty fan or closet light can also cause AFCI breakers to trip. Try replacing the fan and closet light with new ones to see if that resolves the problem. Fourthly, shared neutral. If the circuits share a neutral conductor, this can also cause AFCI breakers to trip. Make sure that each circuit has its own dedicated neutral conductor. Fifthly, ground fault. A ground fault can also cause AFCI breakers to trip. Check for any ground faults in the circuit. Sixthly, incompatible devices. Some devices, such as older motors or electronic ballasts, can generate electrical noise that can interfere with AFCI breakers. Try using a different type of AFCI breaker that is less sensitive to electrical noise. To troubleshoot the AFCI breaker tripping issues, firstly, isolate the circuits. Disconnect the paddle fan and closet light from the circuit and see if the AFCI breaker still trips. If it doesn't, then the problem is likely with one of those devices. Secondly, test the devices. Test the paddle fan and closet light separately to see if they are causing the AFCI breaker to trip. Thirdly, inspect the wiring. Inspect the wiring for any signs of damage or loose connections. Fourthly, check the neutral. Check to make sure that each circuit has its own dedicated neutral conductor. Fifthly, test for ground faults. Test for any ground faults in the circuit. Sixthly, consult with an electrician. If you are unable to resolve the problem yourself, consult with a qualified electrician. Since the scope of the job did not include rewiring the house, it is important to communicate clearly with the homeowner about the additional work that may be required to address the AFCI tripping issues. Explain the potential causes of the tripping and the steps that need to be taken to diagnose and resolve the problem. It is also important to provide a written estimate for the additional work before proceeding. The NEC requirements for AFCI protection are intended to improve electrical safety and reduce the risk of fire. While AFCI breakers can sometimes be nuisance tripping, they are an important safety device and should not be bypassed or disabled. If you are unsure about the NEC requirements for AFCI protection in your area, consult with your local electrical inspector. When a panel is changed out, the interpretation of the local inspector is what matters the most. When a new panel is installed, sometimes the local inspector will ask for AFCI breakers, sometimes they do not. AFCI breakers are required in many locations of the house, especially bedrooms. AFCI breakers protect against arc faults, which are dangerous electrical faults that can cause fires. Arc faults can occur when wires become damaged or loose, or when appliances malfunction. AFCI breakers are designed to detect arc faults and trip the circuit, preventing a fire from starting. There are two types of AFCI breakers: branch or combination type, and outlet branch circuit type. Combination AFCI breakers provide protection against both series and parallel arc faults. Outlet branch circuit AFCI breakers provide protection against parallel arc faults only. AFCI breakers are typically required in bedroom circuits, as well as in other areas of the home where arc faults are more likely to occur, such as living rooms, dining rooms, and kitchens. The specific requirements for AFCI protection vary depending on the local electrical code. To address the tripping issues you are experiencing, start by checking all of the wiring connections in the affected circuits. Make sure that all of the connections are tight and that there are no loose wires. Also, inspect the wiring for any signs of damage, such as frayed insulation or exposed wires. If you find any damaged wiring, it should be repaired or replaced. Next, test the appliances that are connected to the affected circuits. If you suspect that an appliance is causing the AFCI breaker to trip, try unplugging the appliance and see if the breaker stops tripping. If the breaker stops tripping when the appliance is unplugged, then the appliance is likely the problem. You should have the appliance repaired or replaced. If you have checked all of the wiring connections and tested all of the appliances and the AFCI breaker is still tripping, then there may be a problem with the breaker itself. You should replace the AFCI breaker with a new one. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, you should hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. There are several reasons why an AFCI breaker might trip. Here are some of the most common causes. Firstly, loose wiring connections. Loose wiring connections can cause arcing, which can trip an AFCI breaker. Secondly, damaged wiring. Damaged wiring can also cause arcing. Thirdly, overloaded circuits. Overloaded circuits can cause the wires to overheat, which can lead to arcing. Fourthly, faulty appliances. Faulty appliances can also cause arcing. Fifthly, moisture. Moisture can cause corrosion, which can lead to arcing. Sixthly, ground faults. Ground faults can also cause AFCI breakers to trip. To troubleshoot AFCI breaker tripping problems, start by checking all of the wiring connections in the affected circuit. Make sure that all of the connections are tight and that there are no loose wires. Also, inspect the wiring for any signs of damage, such as frayed insulation or exposed wires. If you find any damaged wiring, you should repair or replace it. Next, test the appliances that are connected to the affected circuit. If you suspect that an appliance is causing the AFCI breaker to trip, try unplugging the appliance and see if the breaker stops tripping. If the breaker stops tripping when the appliance is unplugged, then the appliance is likely the problem. You should have the appliance repaired or replaced. If you have checked all of the wiring connections and tested all of the appliances and the AFCI breaker is still tripping, then there may be a problem with the breaker itself. You should replace the AFCI breaker with a new one. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, you should hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. AFCI breakers are designed to protect against arc faults, which are dangerous electrical faults that can cause fires. AFCI breakers are required in many locations of the house, including bedrooms, living rooms, dining rooms, and kitchens. If you are having problems with AFCI breakers tripping, it is important to troubleshoot the problem and resolve it as soon as possible. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, you should hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. In the specific case where the AFCI breaker trips when the paddle fan is turned on or the closet light comes on, this strongly suggests a problem with either the fan, the light, or the wiring to those devices. The fact that the AFCI breaker trips immediately when the device is activated points to a potential arc fault within the device itself or in the wiring leading to it. Firstly, inspect the paddle fan and closet light. Carefully examine the wiring connections inside the fan and light fixtures. Look for any loose wires, damaged insulation, or signs of arcing or burning. If you find any problems, repair or replace the wiring or the fixture. Secondly, check the fan motor. If the fan has a motor, it could be the source of the arc fault. Try replacing the fan motor or the entire fan. Thirdly, inspect the switch. The switch that controls the closet light could also be the source of the problem. Try replacing the switch with a new one. Fourthly, check the wiring in the wall. If you have checked the fan, light, and switch and the AFCI breaker is still tripping, then the problem may be in the wiring in the wall. This is more difficult to diagnose and repair, and you may need to hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. Fifthly, consider electrical noise. Some electronic devices, such as dimmer switches and electronic ballasts, can generate electrical noise that can interfere with AFCI breakers. If you have any of these devices in the same circuit as the paddle fan or closet light, try removing them to see if that resolves the problem. Sixthly, upgrade the breaker. Upgrade the AFCI breaker. There are different types of AFCI breakers, and some are more sensitive to electrical noise than others. If you are having problems with nuisance tripping, you may want to try using a different type of AFCI breaker. It's important to note that AFCI breakers are designed to protect against arc faults, which are a serious safety hazard. If you are having problems with AFCI breakers tripping, it is important to troubleshoot the problem and resolve it as soon as possible. Do not simply replace the AFCI breaker with a standard breaker, as this will remove the arc fault protection. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, you should hire a qualified electrician to do the work for you. Determining the extent to which AFCI protection is required after a panel change is crucial. The NEC, or National Electrical Code, is updated every 3 years, so knowing which version your jurisdiction is using is very important, as are any local amendments. Generally speaking, the NEC does not explicitly state that a simple panel change necessitates AFCI protection on all existing circuits. The trigger for AFCI requirements is usually when you alter, extend, or replace existing circuits. If you are just swapping out the panel without touching the existing wiring, you might not need to add AFCI breakers. However, if you are making changes to the circuits, especially in bedrooms, then AFCI protection is likely required for those specific circuits. The code is designed to improve safety, so compliance is critical. When AFCI breakers trip, it indicates a potential problem that needs to be addressed. It's not just about meeting code requirements, but ensuring the safety of the electrical system. The homeowner needs to understand the importance of proper wiring and device functionality. Explaining the potential causes of the tripping and the steps to diagnose and resolve the problem is essential. Provide a clear, written estimate for any additional work needed before proceeding. AFCI breakers are designed to detect arc faults, which are dangerous electrical faults that can cause fires. There are two main types of AFCI breakers: combination AFCI breakers and outlet branch circuit AFCI breakers. Combination AFCI breakers protect against both series and parallel arc faults, while outlet branch circuit AFCI breakers protect against parallel arc faults only. AFCI breakers are required in many areas of the home, especially bedrooms, living rooms, dining rooms, and kitchens. The specific requirements vary based on local codes. Tripping AFCI breakers can be caused by various factors. Loose wiring connections are a common culprit, as they can cause arcing. Damaged wiring is another potential issue that can lead to arcing. Overloaded circuits can cause wires to overheat, which can also result in arcing. Faulty appliances can introduce arc faults into the system. Moisture can cause corrosion, leading to arcing, and ground faults can also trigger AFCI breakers. Troubleshooting these issues involves a systematic approach. Start by checking all wiring connections to ensure they are tight and secure. Inspect the wiring for any signs of damage, such as frayed insulation or exposed wires. If you find any damaged wiring, repair or replace it immediately. Test appliances to see if any are causing the breaker to trip. Unplug appliances one by one to isolate the issue. If the breaker stops tripping when an appliance is unplugged, that appliance is likely the problem and needs to be repaired or replaced. If you've checked the wiring and appliances and the AFCI breaker is still tripping, the breaker itself may be faulty and need replacement. If you're not comfortable working with electricity, always hire a qualified electrician. Addressing the specific issue of AFCI breakers tripping when a paddle fan or closet light is activated requires a focused approach. This immediate tripping often indicates a problem with the fan, light, or the wiring to these devices. Start by carefully inspecting the wiring connections inside the fan and light fixtures. Look for loose wires, damaged insulation, or any signs of arcing or burning. If you find any issues, repair or replace the wiring or the fixture. If the fan has a motor, it could be the source of the arc fault. Try replacing the fan motor or the entire fan unit. The switch controlling the closet light could also be the problem. Try replacing the switch with a new one to see if that resolves the issue. If these steps don't solve the problem, the wiring inside the wall might be the cause. This requires more advanced troubleshooting and might necessitate hiring a qualified electrician. Some electronic devices, such as dimmer switches and electronic ballasts, can generate electrical noise that interferes with AFCI breakers. Try removing these devices from the circuit to see if the tripping stops. Consider upgrading the AFCI breaker. Different types of AFCI breakers have varying sensitivities to electrical noise. Using a less sensitive AFCI breaker might help prevent nuisance tripping. Remember, AFCI breakers are a critical safety device designed to protect against arc faults and prevent fires. Do not bypass or disable them. Always troubleshoot and resolve the underlying issue causing the tripping.